Assalamu alaikum. Let's start our lesson with a dua.
اللهم انفعني بما علمتني وعلمني ما ينفعني وارزقني علما تنفعني به. O Allah, benefit me with the knowledge you have given me and teach me that which will benefit me and bestow me with knowledge you will benefit me with.
Today we will be learning about Iqrab, and I hope at the end of this lesson you will have some basic understanding of Iqrab and its importance. And you should be able to identify the Iqrab status of most words. Iqrab is central to Arabic grammar and is the key to understanding the language. Do take note that today I will not be teaching you in detail why an Isim has a certain Iqrab status. That will only be covered much later when you know how to construct simple sentences. In the previous lessons, we've learned that every Isim has 4 important characteristics in terms of grammar, and Iqrab is one of them. One of the properties of Isim is gender. Every Isim is either masculine, muzakkar, or feminine, mu'annas. We've discussed this in lesson 5. The second property is number. For every Isim, there is a singular, dual, and plural form. Plural in Arabic is 3 or more. We've covered this too in 3 installments of lesson 6. And the fourth property is the type of Isim, whether it's a definite or indefinite noun. Inshallah, we will discuss this in the next lesson. So, what exactly is Iqrab? Iqrab is the grammatical status of an Isim. Every Isim can be one of 3 Iqrab status: Rafa, Jar, or Nasab. In most cases, we can tell the Iqrab status of an Isim by simply looking at the case marker at the end of the word, whether it ends with Fathah, Kasrah, or Dhamma, or by studying how it ends, specifically the last 1 or 2 syllables. We'll look at some examples. The Iqrab of Al-Kitabu and Rasulun is Rafa because they end with Dhamma. The status of Al-Kitabi and Rasulin is Jar, as the case marker of the last letter is Kasrah. And the Iqrab of Al-Kitaba and Rasulan is Nasbun or Nasab because it ends with Fathah. Have a closer look at the word Rasulan. Notice the alif here? It is not part of the original word. As a rule, if the word ends with fatahtain, an alif is added. The only exception is when the word ends with ta marbuta or with hamza. Why do we need to know Iqrab? In English, switching the order of words in a sentence will change its meaning. For example, the sentence Zaid hit Umar has a completely different meaning from Umar hit Zaid. What about the Arabic language? Let's take these 2 sentences as an example. The word order is the same. First word, daraba, a fi'il or verb, which means he hit. Second word, Zaid. Third word, Umar. But their meaning is different. First sentence, daraba Zaidun Umaro, Zaid hit Umar. The other sentence, daraba Zaidan Umar, Umar hit Zaid. The one thing that determines or clarifies the meaning is the case markers at the end of the words Zaid and Umar. That's Iqrab. Iqrab clarifies any ambiguity in the meaning of the sentence. Without it, we can't be 100% sure of the meaning of a sentence, especially for us non-native speakers. That's because in Arabic, word order isn't as important as Iqrab. Now we know why we have to be careful with case markers, be it Fathah, Kasrah, Dhamma, when we are reading the Quran. Any mistake could result in a material difference to the meaning of a sentence. Iqrab of an isim can change for two reasons. Iqrab of a word is dependent on the role it plays in a sentence. For example, if it's the object or the subject of the sentence, or if it shows possession, such as Ali's book or my friend's house, and many more parts of speech which we will be learning in the coming lessons, inshallah. The second reason is the effect of certain harf or huruf, which is the plural of harf. For example, the iqrab of any isim placed after a harfu jar will be, not surprisingly, jar in status. We learned that back in lesson 2C. Or when the isim is placed after certain huruf, such as inna and others in that group, or after huruf istisna when we're talking about exceptions. There are many other harf or plural huruf which will affect the iqrab. We will be learning more about harf in a separate topic. A sound understanding of iqrab is essential in Arabic. In fact, the words iqrab and Arab share the same root word. So don't worry, we will go real slow in our lesson and we'll try to repeat the key points in the coming videos. Earlier, I said that in the most basic form, iqrab, rafa, nasab and jar will determine that the isim ends with dhamma, fathah and kasrah respectively. So, is it really that easy to identify the iqrab of an isim just by looking at the case marker at the end of the word? The answer is unfortunately not. There are isim which display their status through other means, and there are isim which do not change at all under any condition or iqrab status. That's because isim has three levels of flexibility. You have isim which are fully flexible and will change depending on the iqrab status. There are those which are partly flexible, and you can also have some which are inflexible and will remain the same no matter what the situation. We can therefore divide isim into three groups depending on its flexibility. The first group of isim is called mu'rab. Isim mu'rab is flexible. The way the word ends will change according to the iqrab status. The second is isim mabni. Isim mabni is fixed. Any isim in this group has only one form and will never alter its ending, whether it's rafaq, nasab or jar. The third and final group is mamnu min sarf. It is a special group of isim which cannot end with tanwin, nor can it end with kasrah. We won't delve further into Mabnu min sarf today. We will instead focus on the other two groups, Mu'rab and Mabni. Let's look at an example of Isim Mu'rab such as Al-Kitab, which means a book. You have Al-Kitabu, Al-Kitaba and Al-Kitabi. Notice the case marker at the end of the word changing to suit the iqrab status. The iqrab of the word al-kitab is clearly visible in each case. Compare this to isim mabni. We will use the word alladhina as an example. Alladhina means those people who. Although the iqrab changes, The word remains exactly the same in every situation. There is no alladhini or allazinu in Arabic. You can think of Isim Mabni as a stubborn little thing. It won't change under any circumstances, and it will not show its i'rab status explicitly. So how do we know which isim are mukrab, which are mabni, or if the isim is mabnu min al-saf? We'll start with isim mabni. Isim mabni are fixed. They won't change. And these isim are often repeated in the Quran. Over time, you will need to memorize them. Examples of isim mabni are personal pronouns such as anta, you, and hum, they. In Arabic, personal pronouns are called domir. Words like alladhi, the one who or the one which, and alladhina, those people who, these relative pronouns are called isim mausul. Question words or interrogative nouns such as man, who, and ma, what, are mabni. They are grouped under isim istifham. Demonstrative pronouns like hadha, this, and ulaika, those. Such words are called isim ishara. Conditional words such as man, meaning whoever or whomever, and in, meaning if. These words are called isim sharat. And a few other groups of isim mabni. In trying to understand Arabic, it helps to memorize some, if not all, of these isim mabni, because not only do they appear very often in the Quran, there aren't that many and they don't change in any situation, so you can spot them very easily in a sentence. We will be learning more about isim mabni in greater detail in the coming lessons, inshallah. Mamnu min al-sarf are isim which cannot end with tanwin nor with kasrah. Some examples of mabnu min al-sarf are as follows. Non-Arabic proper names longer than 3 letters such as Ibrahim and Yusuf. Proper names of places like Mecca or Bakah as mentioned in the Quran. And various other words. So which words are considered mu'rab? The answer is everything else. All isim other than isim mabni and mamnu min al-sarf are mu'rab. We can break down these isim into groups we should already be familiar with, namely isim mufrad or singular nouns, isim musanna or dual nouns, isim jamak muzakkar salim or sound masculine plural nouns, isim jamak muannas salim or sound feminine plural, jamak taksir or broken plurals, and a special group of 5 isim or asma'ul khamsa, which I like to call the famous 5. I think only 3 of the 5 isim are mentioned in the Quran. I've included them here for completeness sake, but we will leave these 5 nouns for now and take a closer look at the rest of the isim mukrab. We'll start with isim mufrad and jamak taksir and analyze them together. The words muslimatun and al-muslimu represent isim mufrad, while kutubun represents jamak taksir. Don't forget, jamak taksir are plurals which cannot be easily predicted from its singular form, and they look no different from isim mufrad. The only way we can differentiate between isim mufrad and jamak taksir is to look up the meaning in a dictionary. When these words end with dhamma, they are rafa'. So, muslimatun, al-muslimu, and kutubun are all rafa' in status. When the i'rab status is changed to jar, the words become muslimatin, al-muslimi, and kutubin. So, when these words end with kasrah, you know they are jar. And when the words are nasab, they become muslimatan, al-muslima, and kutuban. So, when you see these words ending with fathah, they must be nasab. To summarize, for isim mufrad and jamak taksir, the dhamma means they are rafaq, the kasrah tells you they are jar, and fathah at the end means it's nasab. Let's turn our attention to dual nouns or isim musanna. We already learned that these are isim which end with ani or aini. How do we tell the i'rab? Unlike the previous case, we can't look at the last letter nun because it always ends with kasrah. So you have to look at the letter before the nun. When its second last letter is alif, as in the suffix ani, it is rafa. When it's ya in the suffix aini, it can be either jar or nasab. We'll take an example of 3 words which mean 2 books, 2 Muslim women, and 2 Muslim men. When the suffix is ani, as in kitabani, muslimatani, and muslimani, these isim are all rafa. When they're jar or nasab, these words become kitabaini, muslimataini, and muslimaini. So, the i'rab sign in isim musanna is the alif in ani for rafa and the ya in aini for nasab and jar. Now we come to the sound plurals or jamak muzakkar and muannas salim. In previous lessons, we learned that jamak muzakkar salim are plural isim used to describe human or human traits, and these isim end with una or ina. Both of the words muslimuna and muslimina mean many Muslim men. Muslimuna is the rafa' form of the word, while muslimina can be nasab or jar. So, rafa' sign for a jamak muzakkar salim is the letter waw in una, and the nasab or jar sign is the letter ya in ina. Jamak muannas salim are plural feminine isim which end with a long vowel a followed by the letter ta. An example of jamak muannas salim is the word for many Muslim women, muslimatun and muslimatin. Muslimatun is rafa because it ends with dhamma. Muslimatin ends with kasrah and can be either jar or nasab. Do take note that jamak muannas salim will never ever end with fathah. To summarize, for a jamak muannas salim, the rafa' sign is the dhammah, while the jar or nasab sign is the kasrah at the end of the word. Let's do a recap of what we learned today. I'rab is the grammatical status of a word. The i'rab of an isim in a sentence is determined by the role that word plays in the sentence, be it as a subject, an object, or other parts of speech. It also changes when the isim is placed after certain harf, such as harf jar. All isim can be categorized into 3 groups in terms of i'rab. The first is isim mu'rab or inflexible isim, Mabni and Mamnu, partly flexible isim, and the third is mabni, inflexible or fixed isim. Isim mabni is kind of stubborn and does not change under any condition. You can't tell the i'rab of isim mabni just by looking at it because it remains the same in all 3 i'rab status. Mamnu min al-sarf is a small group of special isim which can never end with tanwin nor with kasrah. We'll discuss Isim Mabni and Mamnu bin Assarf in greater detail in the coming lessons, inshallah. Mu'rab is the complete opposite to Mabni. The end of any Isim Mu'rab will change to reflect its Iqrab status. Today, we looked at a few examples of Isim Mu'rab and we can make the following conclusions. Isim Mufrad or singular Isim and Jamak Taksir share the same Iqrab signs. If they end with Dhamma, they're Rafa. If they end with Kasrah, they are Jar. And if the final letter's case marker is Fathah, they're Nasab. As for Isim Muthanna or dual nouns, when it ends with Ani is Rafa, and those ending with Aini are either Jar or Nasab. In the case of Jamak Muzakkar Salim, when the last syllable is Una, it's Rafa. When it's Ina, the isim is either Jar or Nasab. Finally, for Jamak Mu'annas Salim, if the word finishes with a Dhamma, it's Rafa. If it ends with Fatah, there are two possibilities. It's either Jar or Nasab. Do remember that Jamak Mu'annas Salim can never end with Fatah. This week's lesson on Iqrab may seem trivial, but it's central to Arabic grammar. Bear with me as we go through the basics. I like to think of Iqrab as clues or hints. Later, we will learn to use these clues to determine what role a particular word plays in a sentence and, inshallah, use that to translate simple sentences in the Quran. I do hope you are able to understand this week's lesson. Please subscribe to this channel or share the video if you find it useful. As usual, we'll conclude this lesson with Tasbih Kafara. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.